All right, welcome back to the Ireland Contracting Nightly Sports Coverage. Walsh, along with Paul Zeise for today's show. And by the way, Paul Zeise, he really got that golf game going. I saw it front and center this week at Montour Heights Country Club. You're on. You've turned that game around, Paul. You're deadly now.
I'm not deadly, but I'm getting there. I'm getting better, a little bit at a time, Rich. You know, it's a hard game to master, but it's at least fun now to play for me, you know, because I can hit the ball and be somewhat consistent with it. But it's a hard game. You know, one thing, you get good at one area, and then something else falls apart. You know how that is.
Well, speaking of hard games and consistent, Eric Kasparovich was one of the most consistent coaches there was, and he got fired this week at Pine Richland. What do you make of that whole thing that's going on there? I mean, it just you see you see what's happening at social media. You see people are protesting up at Pine Richland. What's your opinion on everything?
I would say this: the people that made that decision, they are utterly clueless people, because it seems like they're surprised at the backlash. Like, they didn't realize this was going to happen when they made a decision like that. And more importantly, if you're going to make a decision like that, okay, be a stand-up guy and answer for it. Don't hide behind, oh, well, it's personnel matters, and so therefore they're private. Because it's funny to me, whenever they want to get something out, it always gets out. But whenever they want to hide behind some nonsensical privacy thing, then they do. Here's my thing. You know what? Eric Kasparovich, him and his side, they've already talked. It's a public matter now. You know, they've made it pretty clear what their side of the story is. There's no reason in the world why Pine Richland, school board, superintendent, whoever, shouldn't have to answer questions about why this decision was made. Show your work, show your notes, and then maybe people will say, okay, well, that makes sense. But until then, it's a clown show up there.
You know, a school board member already resigned, I saw today, right? Someone resigned over it, I think. So, I mean, I don't understand what you said. I don't understand why they don't come out and say this is why we did it. I mean, he was the best coach in the Whippeal, right? Had the best teams.
But that's the point. But that's the point, Richie. All these public schools, we allow them to get away with this. We allow these administrators to make decisions like this and never have to answer questions because they hide behind, well, it's a private thing, it's a personnel matter, you know, we can't get into it. That is the biggest cop-out ever. It's a public school. It's a very public case. I don't want to hear that from those people. The guy that resigned apparently is a genius because he put in a direct message exactly what was going down before it happened and seemed to be in a celebratory tone that they were getting ready to get rid of Kasparovich. So basically he didn't really understand that when all of this blew up, that probably was going to leak out and make him look really bad. I mean, this is just a total mess. And if Pine Richland, the people that run that school, the superintendent, if they have any brains at all, which we've seen a lot of evidence over the last few days they don't, but if they do, they will get with Eric Kasparovich and try and come up with how do we, you know, pull this back together and gracefully bow out of this thing. You can still be the coach, you know, and you know, you don't say bad things about us, and we pull it back together. How can we do that? If they're smart, that's what they'll do. But again, we've seen a lot of evidence that they're not very smart.
Well, I just found out that he is reapplying for the job. So then what would happen? Say he reapplies. Would the school board ever change their mind and say, you know what, we made a mistake. It was this guy that wanted him out. Now it was a mistake. We're gonna retain him and the whole coaching staff.
Well, that's happened before. I mean, it's happened several times. I mean, Timmy McConnell, I think they opened up his job a few times. I think Danny Holzer at Upper St. Clair. I think Jim Render. I think it happened to him. You know, it has happened where guys, you know, and if you remember Jack McCurry at North Hills, they opened up his position. They had a school board meeting, and who comes bursting in? I think he was actually wearing his Redskins uniform or whatever, was LeVar Arrington. You know, he come barreling down and got up on the mic I mean, you basically knew it was over at that point, and Jack McCurry was still going to be the coach. So, I mean, it has happened where school board members or school boards or whatever made these kind of decisions and then had to back down when it was the backlash was so great, and it was clear that they were in the wrong.
Yeah, I just want to know what it was. I mean, what is behind all this? And I wish PR would come out and say that. But if it is over for him there, I'm sure there's schools lining up or already calling him, and probably would fire coaches to get him to be their head coach.
Yeah, but he's a good dude, man. I don't know that he would do that. I don't know if a school called him that already has a coach in place and said, hey, we'll get rid of our guy if you want to come here. He's the kind of guy that would say no. I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to undermine a coach. He's not going to do that. But if say at the end of this year, he might sit out this year, but at the end of this year, he might go, coach with somebody else. Maybe he's got a friend in the coaching business. He goes and coaches for a year with them, like Bob Pelko or somebody. And, and then next year, obviously there'll be coaches that get fired at the end of the year, and he can, have his pick of the job. So, it's not like he's going to be out of coaching forever, but it just seems kind of silly to me that he's the kind of guy you want to fire. I think he's the kind of guy you want around.
Also, I mean, he could go to Pitt, his alma mater. Maybe they have an assistant kind of job, recruiting coordinator. He'd be perfect for that, too. All right, let's go out to the phone lines. We got, who are we going to? We got Bob. Let's go out to Bob. How you doing, Bob?
Bob and Beechview?
Bob and Beechview, yes. Bob and Beechview.
Yeah, I'm just wondering if this is the academic side of the school district thinking that sports is getting too much, attention.
Maybe.
I'll listen to you.
Paul, I know we talked about it. Sometimes, superintendents want to be the biggest and baddest guy in school districts, and usually the football coaches are, right? And everyone knows the football coach. But I don't know the superintendent. I can't speak for him. I don't know any of those people at Pine Richland, except for Eric. He's the only person I know. And I can attest to him being a good guy. But I don't know those people, and I don't know if there's egos up there, if there's some kind of clash or whatever.
Well, here's the point that I'm going to tell you that makes no sense. If you have a really successful football program, it's good for your school district. It's good for, the publicity. It's good for, in terms of people want to move there. I mean, because it gives good publicity. You know what I mean? If you've got good sports programs, I mean, academics obviously bring people, but you know what? So do sports. So if you're a superintendent, it's dereliction of duty if you're not trying to support and be excited that your football team is really good and gives you lots of good publicity. Why would you not want that? I just don't understand these people.
All right, let's go out to Janine in Freeport. How you doing, Janine?
Hi.
Hey, thanks for calling.
Listen, I had a question about Ben Roethlisberger.
Okay, we might have an answer.
I know he'll be going to training camp this summer. And do you think he'll be doing his radio show?
Paul might be better to answer this question than me. He didn't do a radio show with you guys last year, correct?
No, I don't think. I think that he's probably not going to be participating in that. But you never know. We'll see. If you remember 2 years ago, the whole thing with Antonio Brown blew up because of his radio show. So I'm not sure that he wants to go back into those waters. Probably wants to just ride off into the sunset nice and quiet.
Yeah. Let's continue with the Steelers calls. Let's go out to Bussy in Leechdale. How you doing, Bussy?
Thank you.
You there?
Yes, I'm here.
Go ahead.
Okay, I'm asking about Josh Dobbs. Why did the Steelers hire him? And then why did they let him go and then bring him back? And it seems like they keep doing that. And he had clearly talent enough to do it better in that season a couple years ago than the Duck Boy.
Well, Bussy, they traded him, if you remember. They traded him because there was a battle and they didn't have room for him. So they thought Mason Rudolph was the better backup, right, Paul? It was Mason Rudolph and Josh Dobbs. Who's going to stay? Mason Rudolph was the better quarterback, so they traded Dobbs. They got something for him. And it didn't. That season obviously didn't work out because Ben got hurt, right? And Duck had to play.
Right.
In hindsight, they probably would have rather kept him, right? But then they bring him back. He's a good backup plan here. You have Haskins, who this could affect a guy like Haskins not having OTAs.
Well, I mean, I think the fact that they re-signed Dobbs for a year tells me that Haskins' time here is probably very, very short. And so, the thing about Dobbs, they traded him and it didn't work out for him. He became a free agent again and they signed him because, like you said, Ben got hurt. And so when they traded him, they were actually trying to help him. They were actually trying to help him catch on with somebody else and maybe get an opportunity. He is what he is, and I don't think it's a bad thing. I mean, he's obviously probably the most brilliant guy on that team if you know anything about him. But he's just got limitations, I think. And you know what? There's nothing wrong with saying a guy has some limitations.
Well, that's why he was drafted in the 5th round, right? I mean, he was a late draft pick. They said at the draft that Mason Rudolph had a first-round grade on the guy. So you got to give him every opportunity if you think he's going to be the next Big Ben. We still don't know if he's going to be the next guy, but potentially you might see them go after a quarterback in this year's draft. So we'll see. It'll be interesting in a couple weeks here what the Steelers do in the draft. All right, let's go out to our Tri-State Office Furniture tweet of the day. Hey, what's going on at Pitt? H2P over there, Paul. Pitt volleyball team. This is from Jim Hammett. The volleyball team is playing in the Sweet 16 against Minnesota on Sunday. Pitt soccer team, we were talking about this the other day, #1 in the country, right? They're playing for the ACC title against Clemson. And then the Pitt baseball team having a great season, 17th in the country, and an opening big weekend series against North Carolina at home. So big weekend for Pitt sports. Like to see the basketball team and the football team eventually getting mentioned in those rankings as well.
No, absolutely. I think, I was going to say the big thing is all of that is great, and it's really good for the athletic department, but the perception of the athletic department will always be formed by your 2 basketball teams and your football team. And that's unfortunately the way it is.
Yeah, no doubt about that. We got to take a break. Back in a couple minutes.